right, well, before we get started, I do want to open with a simple prayer so we can all get centered, rooted, and grounded. So if you want to close your eyes and relax. Holy Spirit, we thank you for being with us today. We appreciate your guidance, your wisdom. We know that the words that you give are within the system of divine timing. I ask that everyone tuning in or tuning in later will be able to open their mind and their hearts, their spirits to you, to receive the guidance that you're giving and to apply it after they leave here to their lives every day. We ask that those who are lost find their way to us. Amen. So we have with us today Miss Reverend Danny Johnson, our numerologist, and Paul Casey, Healing Arts, Reverend Paul. Reverend Christina, our astrologer, is not with us today. She had some dance recital stuff going on with her daughter, which is a big celebration after a year of not being able to do that. So we look forward to probably having her back next week. Danny, Paul, how are you guys?
Great, thank you.
Yeah, doing really good, thank you. Excited to be here.
Okay, good. And we have good audio on both of you? Okay, all right, wonderful. So, welcome, everyone. I'm Pastor Ivy Rivera. I'm a Taino Arawak, and I own a school called the Ivy League Psychic Academy, where I train people in their intuitive abilities. Roots Revival Interfaith, this church has sort of branched off from that, again, because we believe that divine guidance is given through intuitive intelligence, psychic, mediumistic, empathic ability, numerology, and astrology. And we know that if you follow these three core truths, you will find healing and prosperity in your life, and you'll be able to heal others, which is always the ultimate goal. So this is the first part of a three-part series on shadow work. So shadow work, what is it? Okay, Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Shadow refers to hidden parts of our being, parts we repress because they cause woundedness or sadness. We hide it because it's read by others as weakness. So Jung believed in the integration of the shadow self and said that our full self is acknowledged when we can live in a balanced way. So he was a brilliant man. You can always go back and Google some of his work. I highly recommend that you study up on what he intended shadow work to be originally in the psychological sense. I think that today it's getting very muddled with sort of new age ideas about what it is in more subtle ways. I think a lot of people are wanting to skip over shadow work these days because we are going through an awakening, the Great Awakening. And we have a lot of people who are misinterpreting their awakening for an awakening when it's actually something very toxic and lower level that they're going through. We have a lot of people who are going through a genuine awakening who want to just sort of level jump and be able to go out and start teaching spirituality, teaching healing to others, healing others directly, and they haven't gone through the process. So shadow work is a long, sometimes grueling process that none of us necessarily want to go through. We don't necessarily enjoy the process, but the things that we're going to be talking about here over the next 3 weeks will help you to get a handle on it, to appreciate it at the very least, and to move through it in a faster manner so you don't maybe stagnate, out or try to run away from it. So let's look at some of the things that are preventing us from doing shadow work. And these are based on my observations from my own self, people in my tribe, clients, students. So one of the things that I've noticed is that we often don't do shadow work because we're not observing the patterns in our life. We don't slow down enough in our society, here in America especially, but I think in general, we don't slow down enough to just examine our lives. So there are patterns that resurrect. And when these patterns show themselves, it's important to examine them, sit with them, get comfortable being uncomfortable, try to be in the present moment instead of running away. We have so many things in the world today that we can use to distract ourselves, and it feeds avoidance issues, escapism. And so we like to say, well, if you could just get over a negative feeling and move past it, that would be the best thing to do. No, that is toxic positivity, okay? Or literally escapism. That is not the best thing to do. We don't want to stew in anything, but we do want to examine everything and wring out the truth and the lessons and the healing that lies there for us. Okay, so reason number 2 that I have found most of us are not doing the shadow work is because we hate tests. We hate feeling as though we're being tested by the universe. We prefer the path of least resistance. And that's fine, but life is a series of tests. That's a fact. I think it's healthy to think of the human experience here on Earth as being like a classroom. It's basically an educational system. And if you try to avoid the tests that come, you're going to end up doing all that work on the other side when you pass away, or you're going to have to reincarnate. It is never going to let up. They will always be here. Okay, reason number 3, we disregard the significance of shadow work because there's no immediate payoff. So we live in a world that is all about instant gratification. And the shadow work process, the self-healing process, is long. The payout is not always immediately there, or the payouts that are there, we don't see as valuable. So you need to do some work on yourself and really assess what is of value to you. Number 4, we have this sort of laziness and moral licensing, which says like, well, I've done enough. I've done some good in my life, so that's good enough. I gave to a charity. I helped out with the protest. I signed the petition. You know, I sometimes, you know, give time or attention over to maybe, you know, resharing these posts, or that because you've done some level of support in the past, you don't need to work on you. It's an out for you. So people will replace their responsibility and really their accountability often with this moral licensing, saying like, well, you know, I give a little bit over here. It's a transfer. And when it's done that way, it's really honestly a transfer of negative energy more than it even is positive. So we try to get out of it. Number 5, cultural enabling. This is probably the biggest one. I should have made this number 1, probably. Everyone's doing their best from where they are. Everyone's just doing their best from their own reality. Everyone's doing their best from what they understand. No, they're not. Some people are, yes. There's a reason that saying exists. I believe that. But I don't think most people are. Absolutely not. I think that we are enabling each other to avoid doing the hard work. And so we're saying, well, it's almost like we can't be held accountable for what we don't know. Well, we do know, but we're all just pretending as though we don't, or we're all just collectively enabling the avoidance of this work. So those that need to do a lot of shadow work may have a tendency to go find other people who also don't want to do the shadow work, okay? So we have to be careful for things like, you know, toxic relationships, you know, stagnation. We want to be with people who have a growth mindset, who are comfortable being honestly in their truth, the here and now, and who understand that we're not perfect and life is a process, but we're willing to face it and do the work. Right? And number 6, there is a fear. People are afraid of wasting time. And I think that this is a big one. I think that people feel that if they entertain shadow work, they are going to get sucked into some black hole that they're never going to get out of. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't think my life can derail right now. Or if you go and seek therapy, that you're never going to get out, that you're going to be there forever, that it's some kind of a trap. And I understand where a lot of that fear comes from. People think that if they look at something they've been avoiding looking at, some injury to themselves, some abuse, something toxic that sort of lurks within them, they feel that if they address it, it's going to sort of take them out. But we don't understand, because we haven't done it yet, the amount of strength that comes from looking, the powerful lessons that come from the examination, and the phenomenal superhuman strength and endurance that is given to someone by the universe, by your ancestors, by your guides, by your own higher mind, when you engage in such a healing activity. And so it's sort of like saying that, you know how bad something's going to be, but you've never tried it. If you've never eaten it, if you've never had the experience, if you've never stepped out and done that thing, you can't judge it yet. You honestly don't know what the process is going to look like for you. So I think there's too much overgeneralization going on there. Okay, so these are some of the reasons that I see people blocking it. I do want to speak really quickly. Each week I would like to break down 3 different things that you can do to work toward shadow work. And then we're going to switch this over to Paul and Danny, open this for discussion. And I forgot to tell you guys earlier, the way we like to run our Sunday services is open dialogue. So if you have questions or comments, feel free to type them in. Paul will be getting to those as we move forward. Do you want them to also start typing in their prayer or healing requests?
Yeah, they can start firing away on those. I'll take them down, and that way we have them covered.
Okay, so closer to the end of service here, we will get to your prayer and healing requests. Feel free to start posting those now. All right, so how do you do shadow work? All right, so I think that the first key, as I mentioned earlier, is to find those patterns. They're pretty obvious. It's probably whatever you've been running and hiding from. Right, then you need to, number 1, get your ego in check. We have a free mini class up here on YouTube called How to Check Your Ego. Remember that your ego is about fear. It's about control. It is the polar opposite of love and faith. So you're going to have to be mindful on a daily basis about areas in your life where you're overly controlling. You're overstepping boundaries. You're not staying in your lane. And start understanding that you're not coming from a place of love and intuition and faith. And be open to how you can better that. Sit with your guides, ask your ancestors, ask your higher mind. Sit with each one of those problems for 5 or 10 minutes. Number 2, your fear of leveling up. We have another free mini class on this here on YouTube called Your Fear of Leveling Up. When we start doing shadow work, we understand that afterward, there's going to be some kind of major payout. And a lot of people are afraid of leveling up in their lives. So we have things like imposter syndrome. You think you're not good enough, been given, or that you are this close to earning. We have perfectionism, where we're constantly getting down on ourselves. Maybe you don't think that you're as good as other people, or you don't want to level up because you don't want to handle the stress of the battles that are going to come along. It's like new level, new devil. We intuitively know that if we level up, there's going to be more trouble. People say more money, more problems, things like this. but that doesn't prevent you from needing to do the work. So your fear of leveling up, check out that mini class to learn more. And number 3, before I open it up here to you too, destiny versus free will future. Another mini class you should check out here on YouTube to break this down for you thoroughly. But people don't understand the difference between the two. So they don't want to do the shadow work, or they think it's not necessary. It's irrelevant. It wouldn't help anyways. The difference between a destiny charted future, a lot of people believe that the world is just like a movie on play. Someone hit the play button when you were born, and that's it. It's going to play out exactly as is planned. So what's the point in participating? But the truth of the matter is, some things are destiny charted, and other things are based on free will future, which means they can be manipulated, and they will be manipulated. So you better be part of the process if you want it to work out to your advantage. So we often actually see destiny charted and free will future coincide, meaning something may be written in the stars or your numerology that it's going to happen, but what you do with it is entirely up to you. So we need to understand that we're not victims, this victimhood mentality that we are just plopped here on earth and it's going to play out and that's all there is to the story. A lot of people say, well, God's here in the beginning and God's here in the end. It would sort of be like that, and that is not at all the case. So we need to get educated on destiny charted and free will, learn when you can manipulate and how to best manipulate using law of attraction, manifestation. So check that class out. And those are the 3 that I want to get to this week. Danny, Paul, what did you want to say on this?
So with when thinking about shadow work and reflecting on what this means and how I myself have kind of gone through it, still going through it, and how folks who are also healers and in healing work go through it as well, and just folks in general. One of the things when I think about like the shadow work journey that I'm still on right now, it really is kind of rooted in self-love. And another one of our services a few weeks back was on radical self-love. And when I think about shadow work, at the core of it, it really is about self-love. And it's about that self-love that doesn't allow ourselves to make excuses for ourselves. And we can kind of like see the potential, our potential as to who we are meant to be and how we will be able to show up for ourselves in years to come. But we have to do the work during that in between, in the meantime. And I really appreciate you describing like how free will and destiny charted futures can kind of come together, because when I think about that, that really has been a part of my own shadow work journey. And it really kind of comes down to preparation. And my mom always said that like 90% of the job is preparation. And when I think about like, you know, whether it be opportunities, people, whatever that might be waiting for us, it's like, are we going to be prepared for when that time comes? And in full transparency, so I'll be transparent, and we are in service. So I will frame this in a service space, a way that is aligned with our mission, our service. So in full transparency, in 2019 was a moment in a time when I know that I really got knee deep into my shadow work. And that was when I felt, and I'm still discerning whether it was God. And because in terms of like pronouns, I sometimes go back and forth as between mother, father. I do feel that there is a lot of feminine energy with God. So I refer to her as Mother God, whether it be God or one of my saints, or my saint mother, as to who it was that told me this. But in full transparency, I was told in actually 2018, forgive me, in September of 2018 to basically go sit down, relax myself, and to be To be abstinent. I'll say it. I was told to be abstinent in 2018. And and the thing is, so God and my saints and those who walk with me, and this was, I know, was preparation for me, for when I started with mediumship training with you. And they know me. They knew me back then. Of course, they know me. They've known me since birth, but they know me, and they had to explain it to me in a way where it's like, okay, listen.
They know you better than you know yourself.
They knew me better than I know myself. And the way they explained it, they were like, listen, this is not some chaste patriarchal thing. We're not trying to control you. Like, relax. But then they explained it, and it feels like the way that it was broken down is like, we need for you to be able to heal your spirit and your heart. You need this time. And they brought back this Yoruba proverb, West African proverb, where it's like, sitting in a sacred place means you must sit alone. And they said, we need you by yourself, in order completely by yourself. And they laid it out. They were very clear and they're very strict as to what that meant. And they said that we need for you to focus on your relationship with God. Like, that's it. That is what your focus is going to be. And they laid it out for like maybe 7 or 8 months. And, now knowing what I know, you don't negotiate with the ancestors. You don't negotiate with spirit. And I remember back then I was like, and they gave me a month and a year, specific time frame. And I asked, well, what about this time? And I got crickets. I got nothing, because I said, you heard what you heard. And it was the most healing and scary and uncertain time that I think I've ever had. But it was so transformative, and it was exactly what I needed. And God sent these beautiful tools to be able to help me with my shadow work. One of those tools, and I know that we've spoken about this in a previous service, but this mirroring exercise, where I sat down and, thought about all the things, the ways that I internalized what I thought I couldn't do, or projecting my thoughts and feelings onto other people. And for every time I projected, I inverted the pronoun the pronoun as onto myself, and made myself responsible for the ways that I was triggered in different ways. And so it forced me, part of my shadow work was sitting down and listing out all the ways that I contributed to my own harm, to my own hurt. What was I doing to contribute to this? And it really, not only was it healing, but it unpacked so much, and it helped me to get to the root of where a lot of my hurt was. And it allowed for me to forgive myself. It allowed for me to recognize the role that I played in my own hurt. And it helped me to create new patterns. And it's like when you literally get on, I think the root word of radical is like root, if I'm not mistaken. I might have this wrong. Please forgive me. For everyone who has joined us. But there is something very transformative about taking full responsibility for oneself. And in my mediumship training, understanding and learning that they're recognizing what is ours versus what is someone else's, as I continue with my shadow work, recognizing, okay, so this is the responsibility of other people to take ownership of. But then in that same scenario, this is what I am responsible for, and let me take responsibility for it. And that has been a really significant part of my my shadow work, because it was not just focused on a specific person or a specific situation. When you were describing patterns, it helped me to understand the why things happened the way that they did, and why I allowed certain things to happen.
Well, and I think that's similar to, a lot of people may understand this is similar to what we talked about earlier, where it's like either level jumping or not staying in your lane or crossing boundaries. It's so important that we understand exactly what we're here to do on a daily basis, and how, because we don't want to do the shadow work, and we don't even half the time know we're avoiding it. We overgive in the wrong places. We're consumed with things, and it leads to exhaustion, because you don't get paid for that. The universe doesn't pay you back karmically for that. That's just like debt. It literally feeds nothing. So your soul never recoups. I love too how you said establish new patterns, how you said I forgave myself for whatever my responsibility was in any of it, or taking note of what my responsibility is now after doing the shadow work. And I established new patterns. And that is so huge, because for those of you tuning in, if you can honestly look back at your life and say, I haven't really established a new pattern in the way I handle my life every day, or my relationships, my responsibilities, if it's really been a while and things aren't working so well for you, this may be where you need to look, because establishing a successful pattern is such a win. I mean, isn't that amazing when you're like not going around the mountain again? You're not attracting the same kind of people to you again. You've actually leveled up. It's a huge pat on the back.
It is. And it allows for us to kind of go back sometimes. And even though we don't go take the full kind of like trip around the mountain, sometimes we might, well, what's around that corner? Is there a billy goat? Like you kind of want to get a little tempted to see what is behind that mountain. And then you're kind of smacked back like, well, listen, is it worth it? Is it really worth to take this trip around this raggedy mountain that really isn't such a great mountain after all, and just go and relax and sit down,
There's your test.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, look, because this is how the universe works, right? Learning it isn't enough. Now let's see if she's going to apply it. Let's see if she's going to walk it now. So test until you cannot even consider that anymore. And then it's, sort of behind you and ready to be taught, out to others. I love too how, and then Paul, I know we want to get to you too, and any questions or comments that you guys are posting here, but Danny also spoke on abstinence. And I think that that's another big area that causes people to struggle and avoid the shadow work. A lot of people don't want to be alone. And it's not just the sexual aspect of it. It's just alone in general. And the healing journey really does require that of you. I went through a similar process, not understanding that's what I was going through, but for 3.5 years. 3.5 years, okay? If I could do it for 3.5 years, you could do it. I was not allowed to date. And I came out of that feeling so weird, like so disassociated. And one day was told I can go back to it, and I just flipped on my light because I hadn't even been attracting people to me. That's how long I had been like that. And so I just thought in my head, they said, turn it on like a light switch. And within 24 hours, I was approached, by a gentleman who had asked me out. And I was like, this is so strange. I mean, this is law of attraction. This is manifestation. This is shadow work. This is being able to be with your own self. And that was the first time I had ever experienced it to that degree. But in that 3.5 years, everything that we talk about here now and at the Academy, that's when it came to me. So feeling afraid to be alone during a time like that is silly in a way, because you have so much company spiritually. You really have no idea, and you don't know what you're made of. You are your own best company, and you need to start, treating it that way. It's great. That's a great story. So interesting. Things we haven't ever talked about. Polly, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just, it was, I like the Billy Goat line. It was funny because, like, you want to go see that Billy Goat, but you already saw like 80 Billy Goats, like it's a test, do you really need to see another? It's funny. And it's so true. The things that draw you back, and that was kind of reminding me today. I was thinking today about certain things in, say, music and art, and like why I'm drawn to them. And I was like, I think that's why when I was, music always, but say when I was into college, things changed and I started to understand art and poetry and film and things like that. And so, I like the particular style, and I still do. But it's like when I was looking at a painting today, I was like, well, why am I particularly drawn to this? And I'm starting to think that because I couldn't for the longest time look inward, I had to look outward and see things that kind of reflected back in, and like there's a whole like certain songs, that make me think of, just the style of day back in like 1985 or something, and it's like, why does it like just put me right there, and it's like, I was supposed to, kind of stop back here and go through and learn. And it's like things will always bring me back to spots where I have to be to, assess, because I'm kind of, let's say, dull and can't get these things on my own. Thankfully, Ivy has a mini class every week I swear they're not all based on me.
I'll drudge some error up that resides in your
right, but like certain things are like,
events.
stay in your lane. Okay, this makes perfect sense. I do things like that quite a bit. But, to look at, the ability to be able to take something you like that you didn't used to really, and then, have it speak to you in a certain way that, but you have to analyze why it is speaking to you. And I guess that, if we're going to go left brain, right brain, it's the outside and it's your spiritual side. And it's like trying to connect is trying to kind of hit you in the face with it. And in a way, a palatable way, I guess. And so for me, I've been trying to, I really just realized it today, but I've been thinking of all the things I like to look at and listen to. And I'm like, why? So today has been kind of a spinning day on that. I was Googling paintings that I liked and trying to assess why I've been so drawn to them and what it is in that is in me that I have to really look at and analyze, and some of them, whether it's just fear or, like if you're familiar with the, Saturn eating his child, the Goya painting, it's like, is it, it's familial relationships, and things like that. You really assess them and like the darkness in them. Like I was always really drawn to dark paintings, dark art. And is it because I need to get through it? I need to see it more. Like I have to kind of bathe in it to understand it. So I don't know. It's like it just when you change and you try to look at things a different way, I feel that I'm getting alerted to it more and more in ways that since I wouldn't normally have seen them, they're kind of speaking to me that way. So it's never ending, but it doesn't. While the work is tough, when you find it, maybe finding it out doesn't have to come in a soul-wrecking way. You can look at it and something you like and realize that even though it's, not obvious, this is probably speaking to you for a reason that is not just pleasure. So I don't know. I that hit me today, and I just putting it out there in case someone else is kind of in the same boat, like finding themselves really drawn to a piece of art, and they don't know why. Maybe check inward and see that there's something, some emotion in that is really speaking to that. It's just shadow.
I think that a lot of people are going through this today with the conspiracies, the conspiracy groups, and they want to say, well, this is my awakening. Well, that's why I'm drawn to this. No, it's time for shadow work. If it's wrecking your life, if it's causing you to hurt other people, that's not the enlightenment. That's not the awakening. That's not of the light. You're dealing with some serious problems there. We are often drawn toward like paranormal activity or, really scary or gross horror flicks, or places that are haunted and super toxic. And I think that while there is, like Paul said, a level of entertainment in art, in film, in music, or with the dark side of things, that's an indicator. That's the universe's way of trying to help you, not to expect you to fall into it and become so embedded that you don't find your way out. It's supposed to trigger you into a state of thinking and analyzing your own self and why it is that you're drawn to that. You wouldn't stop yourself from analyzing why you're drawn to a lover. We nitpick that to death. You wouldn't hesitate to analyze why you like your favorite restaurant, or a certain shade of lipstick or something. I mean, we love talking about this. Why do we avoid looking at how we love the dark, or we are feeding the dark, or it keeps pulling us back in? That's a great point. Really good.
Yeah, and that was like my whole, sorry, Danny, like it's all been just like really, vile, really, like my whole entertainment spectrum, like growing up, it's like, horror
and it becomes like your identity.
Yeah,
it's part of my personality to be into this. Well, there's something going on there more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like, once you can get past like, kind of differentiate what the content is, Like say, for instance, certain music, if you're like, all right, here's the lyrics, I don't need to associate with the murder as part of the lyrics anymore, but I do like the speed of this and things like that. And I can say, whatever, okay, good, I'm growing, I guess.
Right. Danny, what were you going to say?
I appreciate Paul describing like the presence and the significance of art in shadow work, and how sometimes it's kind of like our perspective, how we see something can kind of be an indication of how far we've come in our own shadow work and in our own evolution. And I think about one of the things that came to mind when, and I think about it often. I think about it sometimes I think about it often, but most of the time it just kind of comes and pops in every so often. But one of my favorite paintings is by Claude Monet, the Palazzo de Mula. And it is this painting. When I first saw it, I thought to myself, what is this smeary, blurry mess? What is this? And it would just look like blue and purple just swirling together. But then one day, I don't know, I think I was meditating, or I was just in a very calm meditative space. And I saw the painting again, and it was just beautiful. And it slowed me down, and it brought me to a place that I hadn't been before. And it's this just it's simple, but yet it is also like this kind of blending of purples and blues and like midnight blues. And it's a simple gondola with looks like two people, but it's very blurred. And I absolutely love it. And when I see it and I think about it, it is often an indication of where I am in my own journey. And I love it. I absolutely love it. It's wild because there are some things that, and I started to love that painting maybe a few years ago, and it connects with me deeply. But there has been only one time that I've seen it in person, and that was in Selma, Alabama, when we went down for a civil rights social justice trip. And it was in the home of one of our hosts. And we were talking, and I was just having a conversation, and then I look up, I was like, "The Palazzo de Mula." You were like, "What?"
Synchronicities. You tell a story and everyone looks at you like you have lobsters crawling out of your ears.
Right, exactly. And so that was I know that was not coincidence, and it is absolutely love that.
That's wild. I love that. Yeah, those indicators. A song, a piece of art, something following you, numbers following you, sayings following you. I always think that the hardest way to explain communicating with the spirits and the universe around you is through stuff like that. How do you explain something like that? You have to understand that your dreams are connected to your waking outside world, are connected to the movies that you watch, are connected to the people that call you, are connected to the thing that pops up on your social media, is connected to, like, everything's connected. And those are the strongest, I think, bonds. Yeah, that really lead you to some major leveling up in life. That's awesome. Do we have questions and comments coming through here?
We do have, Amy had said that, thank you for
Okay, so
sharing.
let's hold on that then. Okay, I am going to have people post. If you guys have questions or comments and you have not already posted, go ahead and do that now. At this time, if you have prayer or healing requests for yourself or for others, for anything, go ahead and post that now. We are also taking donations at this time, if you are so inclined to do so. Okay, and Paul, what did we have?
Amy, you wanted to thank Danny for sharing. She said that, it takes a lot of strength to share your personal experiences like that. So, but everyone here is loving the shadow work. So,
okay.
TikTok's blowing up and like, yep, gotta do it.
Well, we do. And I think that the next couple weeks, while we're here talking about this, what I would love for you guys to do is some homework to, treat your life like what it is. It's a lesson in a classroom, which is Earth, and you're a student. And I think that between this week and next, it would be great for you to do the things that we talked about bit by bit, like eating an elephant. Again, what we discussed. Paul has you watching out for things like what you're drawn to. Danny's talking about self-love, self-care, self-forgiveness, responsibility, alone time, things like that. I spoke on watching your ego, right? Fear versus faith, and your fear of leveling up. What are you afraid of achieving in your life? Okay. And also understanding the difference between destiny and free will. Check out those mini classes. And I think that by, next week, you may have some more questions or comments that you can bring here. I really am feeling a theme, though, just coming from the energy of everyone in the service tonight, that we really do have to be careful of the company that we keep. And that doesn't mean that you cut off people that you love who aren't doing anything with their lives, but you do have to be mindful that that's not the way that you want to live, okay? A growth mindset is key to survival and thriving here in life. And you would be very wise to start, even if it's just something like this, like what we're doing here, surround yourself with others who think the same, okay? Don't just stay completely embedded with people who are against growth. It will seep in and hold you back in ways that you're not recognizing. Okay. Did we want to add anything to this, any of us, or do we want to get into the prayer requests?
I just have one more thing to share, and I think it just Spirit just I think is contributing to the Paul's point on art. And one of the books that I love that I know I've spoken about a few times, that I think we will all kind of collectively have read at some point, is called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And that's the book where where that quote, when we want something, all the universe transpires to make it happen. There's this one part in the book that relates to shadow work and relates to how when people are meant to be in our lives, and when people really are supportive of and want to see us grow and thrive, they'll want to see us continue on our journey. And there's a part in the book, and I don't want to be I'm a spoiler girl. I spoil things. But I'll just share this one little piece. The main character's name is Santiago, and he basically is on a journey to find his personal legend, basically his purpose. And he meets the person who he feels is that right one. Her name is Fatima. She's a woman of the desert. And he finds Fatima and he says, okay, I'm with you. I can finally build my life. I'm going to stop my journey. And she said, no, you're not. She said, you're not going to stop your journey. If I'm meant to be with you, I will be here. But you are not done. You're not done with your journey. So when people are meant for us, and especially when we have life contracts with them, when they are really for us, whether in whatever capacity, whatever type of a relationship we might have with them, when they are for us, they will want to make sure that we fulfill everything that we have to do in our life contract, everything that we're meant to do. So it relates back to one of the classes that you taught, actually several classes, where there is no rush. And the thing with timing and shadow work, it is so worth it, because what's meant for us, it's not going to, especially when God and the universe sees us investing in ourselves and following their direction. It's like they're not going to give us direction to care for ourselves and then take something away from us. They just don't work that way. So
and you're wasting more time doing nothing. It's not like that's speeding up the process. Right. Just sit there and not bother at all. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's exactly that. It's that we don't know what that interaction is going to be like between yourself and the universe when you are on that high level energy vibe doing that healing work. Yes, it's difficult, but nothing comes for free in life. We know that immediately. I mean, the minute we're forced to start using the bathroom by ourselves, we start to realize maybe this is a bit of a bum deal. I'm going to have to really work at all this. Yes, we are. And the benefits that you get are immediate in a lot of ways. So it's just a good, nice karmic flow of benefit. I love that. So we have our prayer requests in here. Okay, well, I'm good on this. Danny has said her last piece. Paul, you didn't have anything else to add to this? Any other questions or comments before we get to prayer requests?
Yep.
Okay. All right, very good. And are you leading today?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Expand this here. Okay. Let's start with a prayer from Amy, who's prayer request for those who are suffering mental angst because they're faced with tough decisions. May Spirit give them the strength and light the way. Let's lift that up and claim that for everyone. suffering mental angst. It's from Megan. Said her entire life was recently flipped upside down, and she feels like she can't see a resolve or a light. She's looking for some strength and a light through the darkness. Let's lift this up. Claim this strength from Megan. One from Kayla. Was looking for prayers that she gets the new job she applied for. Let's lift that up. Claim this for Kayla. And there's one from Bella, who just looking for a prayer in general. So let's lift up for Bella some healing and clarity and strength. Claim that for Bella. And it's from Emily. Looking for prayers that everything goes through perfectly tomorrow with their house. So let's lift that up for Emily. Claim luck and speed. No hassles for Emily. And there's one from Christine, who's acting on her intuition and is praying that she made the right decision with her new fresh start and move. All right, Christine, let's lift this one up for you and claim that you made the right move and trusting your intuition. It's a great start. Anything else? Okay, that's all I have on my end.
Okay. Danny, did you want to add anything?
I just had one prayer for anyone who might be worried or concerned about whether it be rent or foreclosure, anyone who might be worried or concerned about housing. We just pray that resources come to them as quickly as possible, and that whomever might be in the position of deciding what happens with their living home situations, that those individuals be kind-hearted, compassionate, and we ask that God touch and heal the hearts and the souls of anyone in the decision-making process or who has the power to make a decision over someone's housing and feeling housing for people. So pray for resources for them and claim that they will have a safe haven and a safe place to lay their head.
And I just want to pray over anyone who needs to leave a toxic relationship, a situation that they know is wrong for them, even if it's complicated, even if you're not sure what all the steps will be that you need to take to get free. I ask that those individuals can break the chains of fear and understand that it's okay to feel afraid, but you still need to show bravery through that, and for them to understand that stepping out in the right direction will bring them the help that they need that they can't access while they're choosing to remain. And just pray for their protection. Okay. Amen. All right, everybody. Well, thank you, Reverend Danny, Reverend Paul, Spirit. Thank you for being here, everyone who tuned in. If you missed parts of this will be published up on YouTube at Ask Ivy probably later tonight or tomorrow. It has to process in anywhere that you receive a podcast. So we hope to see you back here 8 p.m. Eastern every Sunday for part 2. It will be of shadow work. Have a great week, everybody.